The illustrious Jabba bids you welcome. I'm going to regret this.
I'm Pete Mitchell. He's Peyton Jones. And this is the Church Planter Podcast, brought to you by Church Planter Magazine. Hey, Church Planter, this is Pete Mitchell.
And this is Peyton Jones.
With a very velvety voice, I might add.
Hey, I got my mic all sorted now. We're ready to go.
You do. So I was doing a podcast right before this one, and I'm like, I'm going into like my I got a 4-step system for generating business like right now, and all of a sudden, I get a Facebook message from my neighbor, and they're like, "Hey, is our neighbor's house on fire?"
Oh, no.
And I'm like, so I had to like stop that podcast. I ran outside. Like every fire engine in Orange County, I think, is on my street right now. And we've got all this. Well, here's the funny part. It's funny to me. It's not my house, but it's
not yet.
Yeah, right. They've been doing all this construction and stuff on our sidewalks and streets. And I guess one of those trucks backed into a power pole, knocking it over, which then made the power lines fall in the house and caught the house on fire.
No way.
Yeah. And all I could think was, bro, you got a government job. You still aren't getting fired. Like, don't even worry about it. You're good. You're good to go.
Wow. That's crazy, man.
I know.
I hate when my house catches on fire.
I told my wife, I go, it smells like a barbecue in our neighborhood. I actually think it smells quite nice.
Oh, no. It does. It does until the plastic starts burning. And then it's all fun and games till like toxic fumes hit you.
Well, the toxic fumes didn't get released. They brought out every fire engine there is, but I couldn't even see the fire damage. So whatever it was,
it helps to have a government job, man. That's the lesson we've learned from this.
I think so.
Hey, that guy works for the government. Fast, get there.
I'm like, that guy's still not getting fired. Don't even worry about it, bro.
He must be on like payroll or something. Obviously they wanted that guy to be okay.
I guess so.
I was a firefighter, man. I tell you what, I've inhaled some fumes, man. That's all I can tell you.
Well, moving right along.
That didn't sound good, did it?
It really, I was like, man. I had Obama and Clinton jokes coming in my head, and I was like, okay, we just need to keep moving. Just keep moving.
As you know, during our last podcast, when the last time 2 weeks ago, the guy tried to drop the pot off, and I run outside.
We didn't air that, right?
I know. Just this. Our listeners don't know. We're halfway through the podcast, and the pod gets dropped off at my house, and the guy he tells me I have to sign this waiver because he's there earlier, and his wheel snaps off of this. What do they call them? Like a quadruped, or these big giant like 4-legged cranes that drop the pod off. And so anyway, so I get into it, and I'm outside, and I'm like, my voice is pretty raised, and I'm a little adamant, like, no, this is wrong, man, yada yada. And so I come back and I tell you, hey, can't do the podcast, got to go deal with this. And I told the guy, I was like, hey, man, you ain't going nowhere. Because he's like, well, if you're not going to sign this waiver for the accident. And I'm like, dude, until you're done. Like, I'll sign it when you're done if you don't have another accident. But I'm like, I ain't signing nothing. And he goes, well, I got to go. I got other deliveries. I look at him and I go, you're not going anywhere. And he kind of does a double take and he looks at me. And Pete knows I've been a bit on edge these days. And I look at him and I go, no, you understand me. You're not getting in that truck. You're not going to. And I didn't threaten him with, any kind of, but that worked. He was like, okay.
Oh, man.
He called. I said, you call your boss back. You tell him you're going to be here for a while. And then what do you call it? The reason that came up is I've been having these kind of moments. I don't know if there's like something wrong or if I just, maybe I need a vacation. Maybe I'm due for my summer vacation, but I was at Disneyland. And did I tell this story? It didn't air if I did, but I asked the guy, I said, hey.
Hey, you told me.
Yeah, like, hey, like the Columbus ship went by. And I was like, hey, to one of the young guys working there, hey, do you know the story about that? That's the boat, right? Where the mooring snapped and a couple people died, and he goes, yeah, I know, yeah, it is, but I don't really know much about it. And I'm like, oh, and this guy walks over and he starts kind of grandstanding, that's the kind of thing that some people around here don't really want to talk about. And, like he just starts grandstanding and waxing eloquent. And I'm standing there with my family, like, did you really just like grandstand in front of everyone here? Like, how you can't ask about that and blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, when you get in the park and you go to the Hall of Presidents, they tell you up front, like if you go in the little museum, they're like, you can ask us any question. We won't volunteer from it, but if we know, we're supposed to tell you. And so, I'm sitting there and I wait until, we go through the canoes, right? That was the first, it was the canoe ride. Nothing good can come of that, right? I mean, everybody knows, don't ever ride the canoe ride. And if you guys don't know, you're not actually rowing the canoes. That's the big joke that they play on you. They keep telling you how important it is to row, and things on a total track. You're not rowing the thing. And it's on like a little roller, kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean. Keeps you going at a nice little speed, and they just fool you. So I just sit there on the canoes and just look at her. And she goes, are you going to make everyone else do all the work? And I go, do you want me to tell the secret? So anyways,
was that the same trip?
It was the same trip, yeah.
You really were on edge.
I was salty. I'm telling you, I was salty, and so of course this guy had made me a little angry. So anyways, we get out of the boat and I go back to the dock, and everybody's putting something away. So I go find the dude. I'm like, hey, John, because he's got a name tag. I'm like, we got to talk. So I tell him, I say, hey, dude, look, I was a firefighter, right, and a paramedic, and an RN. I've seen a lot of death. And I said, so here's the thing, man. Next time you want to grandstand in front of someone's family about what a traumatic experience it is, I go, that was almost 20 years ago. Your friends need to be in therapy, man. Because that was the thing. Is I said, oh, are they here right now? And he goes, no, but they're in the park. And I said, oh. And I said, but dude, don't do that in front of a dude's family. You played the fool, and by trying to make me look the fool. I go, you don't know who you're talking to. I go, there's a lot of people standing there that's seen a lot more death than your friends have. And I can talk about the things I've seen years on. And I would just say you don't really understand it because you've never been there and you've never seen it. And that was it. So yeah, I've been a little salty recently. This is like my dashboard confessional, my podcast therapy. So I'm lying down on the sofa right now, Pete, and I know what your response is going to be.
What?
The good old podcast advice, which is suck it up, Buttercup.
Oh, I wish I had that on as a soundbite. That'd be perfect.
Ooh, that'd be good. But
I'm too afraid to say "suck it up, Buttercup" to you as of late.
Hey, all I'm saying is the occasional hang in there kitty meme. It just goes a long way, man.
Oh, dude. See, I still love it when I really like the surprise hang in there kitty meme where you don't even know it's coming, and then all of a sudden I text you one, and it's like a decapitated kitty holding on to a line, or those are the ones that really do it for me.
That's how you know you're true friends. Is when you're going through stuff, you get the hang in there kitty, and it's meant to be like things that old ladies send each other to make each other feel better with the cat hanging on the wire, or the tree branch, the kitten. And of course, we know it's totally sarcastic when we're sending it back and forth in hard times. But
I think one of the best ones was when the cat's head was stuck in between the garage door, and it was hanging there, kitty.
The limbs on that cat were strangely limp.
Well, see, the beauty to me is someone was like, this is a moment I need to run back in the house and grab a camera. That cat's dead. And let's face it, this is going to make a great meme someday. I'm taking a picture of it.
At least I can cash in on a hang in there kitty meme. And by the way, there is a whole universe of twisted hang in there kitty memes. But you didn't hear that from this podcast. This podcast is wholly professional.
Which we've found many, many a time.
There has been an exchange, shall we say? Welcome to the Church Planner Podcast, Church Planner. I know you're here to be trained up in the ways of the Force. And yes, I am your Yoda, and he is your Ben Kenobi, and we're here for you. You must complete your Jedi training. We will get back to the Dagobah system soon, but sit tight for a little thing we like to call Smack Talk, which you've already been knee-deep in without realizing it.
You're knee-deep in the smack. That's all I'm saying.
Kind of like on Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Master Blaster, I guess you'd be like...
doing that? Are they doing another one? No.
Hey, how we were talking about short jokes the other day? I guess I'd make you Blaster and me Master, huh? It'd be kind of like, no, you listen to podcast.
I remember us talking, not giving short jokes, but about the phenomenon of short jokes.
Yeah, I'm okay, actually. I'm okay on those. Oklahoma!
If people only understood that so far this episode has been all about us.
Pretty much.
And telling our inside story. Do you have a bird like chirping in your house? What the heck?
Everybody's asking me about the birds. Yes, there are my garden has been going nuts with the birds because of all the rain that we've gotten. And so, I put grass seed down.
Wait, you mean bird seed really does sprout birds?
Did I say bird seed or grass seed?
You said grass seed, but I'm just thinking, you said because of all the rain. What's rain got to do with birds?
Well, dude, my garden's like amazing. Like I've seen, the other day I was looking out my window and I watched a bird like sitting on the fence just pluck this big old bug out of the air. It must have been like a June bug. Go over and knock its head on the fence a couple times like a snail and eat it. And it's been awesome, dude. I'm not a bird watcher. Bird watching's for nerds.
June bugs are the worst bugs on the planet, so I'm cool with that.
Dude, they're freaky, man. How do they get in your shower?
How do you
That's
not
what I wanna
have
know.
them the other 11 months? Why is it all of a sudden in June they come out and it's like, I don't know what they do.
And where are they hiding until, you're sitting back watching TV and all of a sudden you hear this like a helicopter in your room and there's this giant June bug that pops out of nowhere. And my cat yesterday was like, woohoo! Jumps up off the ground, grabs that thing and eats it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was pretty rad.
That's cool.
I don't know why, man.
So I started two other podcasts.
Yeah, tell me about them.
Oh, well, I know.
Oh, do you want me to shut the door, though, for the birds?
No, I say leave the birds.
You're enjoying that? You're being serenaded?
I really want to hear the train when it goes by, so if you could leave the door open.
This is Peyton Jones. I'm out on assignment, out in the wilds, learning about church planning, stalking two church planners right now in their natural environment. Sorry, what are your two podcasts?
Thank you for asking. The one I was just recording right before this, it actually has nothing to do with church planning at all. It's Contractor's Secret Weapon. I'm teaming up with my buddy Dave, who's been running it for years, and then he kind of wanted to stop doing it. And I was like, hey man, let's do it. Let's do it together though. And he's an elder at his church, and then the one that I really like. This is the one that if you're a true Pete Mitchell fan. And I don't think there's any of you out there. But if there was one, this would be the podcast you want to listen to. It's called the From Concealment Podcast. It hasn't launched yet. It is all about shooting guns. And I'm doing that with a church planner out in Ohio named Dan Sams.
Nice.
Yeah.
When you talk about that podcast, you have to say, and I haven't fired it off yet. But
she what he did there? She.
That's rad, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
I told you, I was like, hey, I've had ninja stars, and this week we're going to discuss grappling hooks and climbing people's chimneys at night and how not to get caught and arrested. I'd be like, oh, dude, ninja podcast, let's go.
Yeah, this
not
doesn't
that kind
have
of
that.
podcast.
No, not so much. Hey, by the way, talking about shooting, I did competition.
As you do on ministry podcasts.
I know, right. And then I suck all the pastors into shooting world, and
You have been doing that. It's a little therapeutic for some of these guys, isn't
it
it?
really is. Some of them are like, I'm not gonna say who, but I was out with one, and he's like, I really needed that.
Dude, I'm telling you, you could actually do like a rad weekend away for pastors. Just like, hey, come on out. Let's go out and shoot and swig some beer and kind of create like a little retreat weekend.
I'm not drinking the beer.
I know you told me that. Can't go to islands anymore. Like all these years working for the Baptists, that we had to stop going to islands, and now when I'm back, you can't go.
What's funny is, true story, I just reached out to my buddy who's the CEO of apologetics.com per our conversation that you and I had. I'm having lunch with him tomorrow, and he texts me and he goes, hey, let's meet at BJ's. And I'm like, oh. I'm going to BJ's and I can't even have a beer. Come on, man.
That's so rad.
Are you serious?
Oh, that's hilarious, man.
Yeah. No beer. No beer for me. And the reason for that is I'm off the sugar. And so since I'm off the sugar, I'm like, why am I going to put the beer in at this point? So, yeah. Yeah, no sugar.
When you say you're off the sugar, it hits me weird because you remember, like, in the old days, that was like, hey, baby, give some sugar. It was like the Elvis.
Yes. I'm off that sugar, too, but that's not by choice.
Oklahoma!
Oh, you know what movie that's from, though, don't you? The come on, baby, give me some sugar.
Yeah, that's from
Army of Darkness.
Evil Dead. Or Army of Darkness, yeah. Yeah. You said you love me. I was just pillow talk, baby.
That was such a great movie.
Oh, my. The one-liners out of that movie are insane.
Shop smart. Shop S-smart.
Ash Hardware.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Listen up, you medieval heathen savages. This is my boomstick.
The things we do to help out pastors. This right
Oh my
here,
gosh.
This is the example of how we help.
Okay, so if you ever wanted a really bad B movie that has great one-liners, I mean, Ash vs. Evil Dead, they made a whole TV series out of it.
Yeah, but you know what? I couldn't get into it. I like tried, but they again went and tried to make it like a serious horror movie, and I'm like,
No, they didn't.
Yeah,
No.
The first episode, I was like, I can't get into this. I'm not into like what made that funny was they didn't take themselves seriously. So
it's really funny because the very first one was a very dark. I mean, okay, I'm not a huge horror fan guy, but I didn't grow up in the church, so mom and dad weren't saying no, you can't watch that, so we watched it, and I saw The Exorcist. Walter Martin still to this, well, I can't say to this day, but in the day he was, sorry, I keep burping.
Till the day he died. How about that?
To the day he died. Thank you. I was
you
a little stuck by the burps. It was like a time warp I got stuck in. But
he said that was, Pastor, quality show.
Welcome to the podcast, everybody. So he said that was an accurate film, and by and far, it was definitely the scariest film anyone had ever seen. I think up to that point. And then I saw Evil Dead, and it was like having 6 or 7 Linda Blairs running around. I mean, that movie scared the pants off me, the first one. And then the second one.
Never saw it.
Second one, like, there was a funny scene in there, but it was accidentally funny. Like, they didn't mean it to be funny. And the story is, when it played in the theater, people laughed at this one part. And the director went, wonder if I could get away with doing funny and scary things at the same time. So the second one,
which
he
is
experiments.
A classic. I saw that one first, Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, so second one, he, I won't go into it because it still creeps me out. But he's got some really funny stuff, including the ending, which is funny. You watch that, and it's just super funny, right? I mean, you know what I'm talking about,
I actually
right?
don't remember the ending.
It's when he gets thrown and sucked, and that's how it ends, is him going through the air.
Oh,
And,
right. When he goes back in time or whatever and ends up where he is for
Right.
Army of Darkness. Yeah.
Right, and you don't realize that's where he's going. He's going back in time, and you realize that in the third one. It opens up the same spot, kind of re-shows it, and then all of a sudden, like, you realize he went through time. Like the book had summoned him.
Baby, you got real ugly.
Ugly. Yeah, that's right. Hell to the king, baby. So, this is like dueling evil, Army of Darkness quotes, Ding, 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 ding. And so anyways,
See, I loved Evil Dead 2 when he was running from the Force and he ends up running in between the sets. And then he's like, it had me at that. I was like, this is great, dude. He's like running in between sets. Or when he gets shot by, I think it was an arrow, and all of a sudden you see him like flying through the air and he's like going through trees and he keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he drops to the ground and then it shows he's only gone like 5 feet. I was like, this is great. I love this movie.
No, it's great. So he, and that the first movie was not that.
Right, I know, which is why I never saw it. Everyone told me, they tried to make a real horror movie and then they made a funny one. I'm like, well, then let's watch the funny one.
That's hilarious, man. Well, hey guys, welcome to Smack Talk.
We should probably get to our content because I know you got to leave in like 25.
No, I'm all right. Really? I got 25 minutes. So we probably should get into it. Huh? So this is a really good topic. Our topic today.
Wait.
Great Scott! It's time for this week's topic.
Let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
All right.
So today's topic is the 5 hardest things about church planning. That's it.
I didn't know if I was supposed to interact. Was I supposed to say something?
So if you're new to the podcast, normally I don't just give the topic. I go into this long-winded.
What I really love about this title is it's not the 5 hardest things in church planning and how to overcome them. It's not 5 really bad things and here's the secret to get around it. It's, hey, I'm going to tell you 5 really bad things, period.
No. I like your way better because, like, that's totally clickbaity, and now you made it more clickbaity. Let's make it clickbaity.
Dude, I'm all about the clickbait.
Because I'm all about that bait, about that bait. No clicky. Come on.
You know that's going to be a soundbite. It's just going to be Peyton going, no clicky.
Oh, no. So, so the 5 hardest things about church planning, and we're going to go in reverse order, starting with number 5. Just picture me like Jimmy Carson. We got, or Johnny Carson got the envelope, number 5. Or, Family Feud survey says, friendly fire. Friendly fire. People that you...
Oh, that was the actual thing. Okay,
that was it.
I didn't understand.
No, that was it. Number 5. Ding. Okay, so friendly fire. That's really hard to deal with because you start off and you're real tight. This is a mistake going in backwards order. This would be way better if it was the last thing I talked about. But, so forget that. We'll come back to that. Only professional podcasting here. I tried something. It didn't work.
Hey,
so the way
Mr.
to overcome
Jones.
it...
Mr. Jones, could you please tell us what's the number 1 hardest thing in church planning that pastors need to be aware of?
Thank you for saving me because the lesson there, folks, is you adjust and maneuver. If it doesn't work, just adjust and maneuver. That will make you a master church planner. So if all you get from this podcast is that today, you're good. So the number 1 hardest thing is lack of funds. When the money runs out, the church planner often is done. And I think, Pete, that comes from, really, if you haven't effectively reached people, and let's say you have, let's be honest, you reach people, they come to the faith, they come in, you can't like hold them by gunpoint and say, look, man, you said you were going to follow Jesus. Where's your money? Tozer said the last part to get converted of any man is the pocketbook. It's the last part to come to Jesus. So no matter what, church planners and money, like Michael Cheshire said, hard to get them in the same room. a lack of funds is hard, and especially if you're bivocational and you're not set apart full time, you're probably not having all the conversations you need to have, and so lack of funds. Because I think most people, the reason it's harder, and because I would say, Pete, on one hand, it's not hard at all, but on another hand, it is hard. So I'll talk about why I think it's hard for most people and why it's not hard for me. So number one, lack of funds.
This is going to actually be a 5-part series, isn't it?
Yeah, we're only going to get to this one.
Yeah, probably.
So the reason I think most people it's hard is they look at, like, let's say like NAM gives them money. NAM gives them, they used to give like $2,000 a month. If you're reproducing, it was $3,000. Don't get your hopes up, because my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, is that you get $1,000 now. Like that's what you get. Maybe special consideration you get more, but don't quote me on that. But let's say it's $1,000. That's not that much. Let's say it was $2,000. Let's say it was $3,000. That's enough to maybe supplement some of what you got going on, and maybe even put you in a part-time, and maybe you go work as a barista part-time, and the rest of that you're devoting to the church. But eventually that funding's only going to be there for a small amount of time. And often what'll happen is the church planter will stop getting that. And by the way, often that money goes to the planter to pay his bills. It doesn't get poured back into the church. And I always kind of think it's always dangerous. And Pete, this is kind of where you maybe are really valuable on business startups, because my understanding is you got to be careful how much money you take out of something when you're starting it up.
Well, yeah, that's just because you need the money in it, but that's not just when you're starting it up. That's the whole life of the business.
Yeah. And a lot of guys have never been in there, and they're not thinking like, if NAM's giving me $2,000, maybe I keep $1,000 of that and pour the other $1,000 into outreach, or pour the other $1,000 into, we really need someone to help run Sunday school, or we really need, whatever it is, So I would say that a lot of times what happens is the guys are going into it thinking of their finances, their support. And you and I have talked about this before, that marrying your financial viability with the church's is almost suicide.
Right.
And so for me, when I first start up any church, I don't get paid from that church in the first year, at least. And unless I've made out, like when I planted out from the mothership, I was able to slightly change that a bit. And I was able to work out, because I had the mothership right there. I was able to say, well, here's what I'd like, let me know, boom, boom, boom. And, but I've always had another job. So what I'll do when I'm planning a church is I will make sure I am completely self-sufficient off of that church, so that if I don't need that money, the church still goes on. If the church needs that money, the church can have that money. And because you were the treasurer for a bit, in a church like Refuge Long Beach, you have to be fluid with your finances.
Very. Yeah, you got to be prepared for anything. And that's the reason why Refuge, at least, would meet in the park, because $25 a month, or not a month, a week for that permit was a lot cheaper than, whatever it was, $350, $400 to rent the building.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was another thing, is just being kind of strategic. There's a couple times we looked at our bank account and went, hey, you know what? Let's save some money. Let's build a nest egg, or let's whatever. We were supporting missionaries from day one. And kind of one of my rules was always, we don't cut the missionaries. We keep those, and then if we do that, we continue to adjust other things, and that was kind of what we did. So, second one is connected to this, and that is the BIVO balance. And Pete, we've talked with a bunch of people over the years of BIVO Inner Circle, and it's been kind of like Fight Club for bivocational planners, right? They come in there and it's like, you don't talk about Fight Club, like like all the struggles, the issues with marriage and relationships and kids. And
At least you don't have any trains in your neighborhood.
trains going through your yard. I mean, but there's tons of issues. Like I would say that the hardest thing for that is trying to get the balance right. And that was one of the things that we spoke a lot into that over the couple of years that we did Bible Inner Circle.
Yep.
What were some things that you felt speaking into that issue that our guys really learned, or things they struggle with?
Well, you'd have to ask them what they learned, and to a degree what they struggled with, because some of that stuff, as we said, what happened in the Bible Inner Circle stays in the Bible Inner Circle. But what I will say is seeing the opinions of pastors and how they like to tell everyone their opinion. And I think the greatest shame is that pastors got to take a side job. Like, they literally were seeing it as it's shameful. So imagine you're the pastor at a church that can't get his full support from the church, or if he is getting something, I mean, he's living in the poorhouse, if that's all he's getting. And you got all these other pastors out there, like, basically saying, well, I think it's shameful if you got to go get another job. That's basically saying, well, if you were a better pastor, you'd be able to make a living off of this. And to me, that just bothered me. Like, you literally can't see the benefit at all in being bivocational. Every single person, the pastors, even people who were elders in their church who would comment on my Facebook posts and stuff, none of them saw the value in being bivocational. They all saw it as a shame. And I was just like, man, that's just jacked up. That's totally jacked up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get you. I actually think so many of our guys, they didn't, they had never been maybe in a team leadership before. And that was always a thing that I would try to coach them on is, guys, if you're not part of a team, good luck with that Bible thing, right? Like, those two are made for each other. I mean, if you only have a small percentage of yourself left over, then you're going to be like 1/5 of a minister available to your church. Maybe churches don't thrive or grow with 1/5 of a minister any more than your family would with 1/5 of you. But if you had a team,
just so
together,
you know, I'm trying to lose 1/5 of me.
I've had that on my team too, where I'm like, we need to lose that guy. No, I get what you're saying. And really what I'm talking about is becoming the mighty Voltron, like you and 4 others,
Yeah.
You become the A team, and so the Bivo balance, if you've got like this group going and that group, maybe you don't lead that every night because you got a team, maybe your cogs, there's 5 of you, but you got 3 cogs. Maybe you rotate. Give yourself some time off. Maybe sometimes you don't go. I know that's like unheard of, right? Because we're all about commitment. But sometimes the best sermon you can ever give is, "Hey, you know what, you guys? I'm so and so's leading tonight because I haven't seen my family for a while, and I got school things on this night and that night. This is the one open night I have. So Bible balance is important." Number 3. And this was something, Pete, that as we have been doing this podcast over the years, I mean, it's going up to 7 years now. This is something that I really realized was our podcast has morphed all over the place, where I would say for maybe like 2 years, we didn't talk a lot about church planting because the feedback we kept getting from everybody was, "Hey, I don't know how to do a wedding. Hey, I don't know how to do a funeral. Hey, what do I do when, how do I set up church finances?" And we realized, this is point 3. The hardest thing about it is lack of training and or experience. Like, if your first church, and this is often the case, the first church leadership, where you've led the whole thing is a church plant, you have to learn everything really fast. It's kind of like, graduating from high school or turning 16 when you can be legally hired and going, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to become an entrepreneur right here. And you've never worked in a company before. You've never done any kind of business before. You don't have any schooling for it. I mean, that'd be kind of hard.
Yes.
So, and the thing is I was wondering for you, Pete, if you were going to maybe go, well, some guys do that. And
well,
that's
some
true.
guys do that, but I think usually the difference is, in my opinion, they grew up in a family where the parents were business owners.
Yeah.
Like there has to be something. Otherwise, it's too difficult. It's too backwards thinking. Like running a business is totally different than being an employee, and you just won't understand it until you run a business.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't know how someone could do that unless they came from that and saw it their whole life growing up.
And the other thing too is like you work for something like Starbucks or, you go get your job and then you think, oh yeah, I could be the boss because you watch your manager. It's still, that's not the same as owning your business.
You're right, actually. Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first time I worked, it was in Wales. I worked with this guy named Tony. It was actually Barry Waters' dad. And I saw what he did and I went, oh, okay. That's a whole different animal. I go home at night and I don't think about this. He goes home at night and that's all he thinks about, you know? And but the lack of training and or experience, because I don't know, man, like we've covered everything from like, basically if you go through the last 6.5 years, it's almost like a church planter seminary. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what our podcasts collectively are, and Smack Talk.
I think you should let's just let everyone know our new sponsor. It's churchplanterseminary.com.
That is a great domain name right there. That's all I'm saying. churchplanterseminary.com. Because when you're church planting, this is the point I'm making, is we found we had to branch out on all these other topics because even if you were the youth pastor, you didn't know what to do when you were holding the whole thing, or you didn't go to seminary. So you're like, dude, I don't understand what Calvinism is, or I don't understand. You and I were talking about the Trinity today. And nobody really fully understands that. It's revealed and we accept it, but
my philosophy of which you didn't comment on, but my philosophy is, even when we get to heaven, I don't think we're going to truly understand the Trinity.
Oh, I missed that.
I'm just saying, I don't think, because we are created beings, we are always going to have this slant, and we're not going to fully understand it. I think even when we get to heaven, we're not going to fully understand it.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's probably true. It's probably true. Number 4, the second year. That is usually my number one when people ask me, but it didn't flow off
See,
the tongue.
I think it's perfect that the birds started chirping when you talk about the second year, because that's what everyone thinks. Oh, it's beautiful now. It's the second year. The birds start chirping. And you've said before, that's the hardest year.
Yeah, because you think, oh man, I'm going to totally get through my first year. First year's when it's tough, man. Second year, we will hit our stride, and it's the opposite. In the first year, everybody's super excited. They're raring to go, man, throwing snowballs, ready to go. And then all of a sudden, the expectations that they had coming in, like, hey man, how come, we're not like Saddleback yet, Where's our Disney trams, man, taking people from the parking lot, I want my Disney trams. How come, we're still meeting in this cruddy school, and people's expectations just kind of start to diminish. And when they don't diminish, they realize that their expectations were unrealistic. And I always tell people that it's funny, because what will happen in the second year is when people all of a sudden they had these delusions of grandeur and these dreams of great things, and hopefully you weren't like an Army recruiter promising them, you're going to be a fighter pilot, and then they're working in some warehouse doing inventory, right? Or Air Force recruiter. But the reality is that the second year, people realize it's really hard work. and then they go back to, kind of like, I just want to sit. And this is really hard work. I didn't sign up for this. I wanted to build this great thing that did things the way I wanted them to do it. And, you can't say that. Like, you can't, the human psyche is not capable of looking at the pastor and saying, hey, I'm kind of shallow. I mean, really, I'm like everyone else. But, the shallow way human beings think is this isn't very exciting. And I signed up because I thought this is going to be exciting, be all the answers to my problems. You know what? It wasn't. But instead of looking deeper or even kind of looking to God or maybe questioning my own spiritual condition, I think I'm going to find fault with you. I think what I'm going to do is find fault with the church. The church isn't loving, or I don't really like the teaching here. And those things may be true, but that's not the real reason that you're going. I mean, when you were excited, you signed up for Hard Knocks. But you know what? I will actually say the one person I have met who was like, hey, there's no air conditioning here, I'm out, was Pete.
But I'm not a church planner.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say is you were never supposed to be there as long as you were. And I was grateful for every minute of it. I was on my way out anyways. I'm pretty sure.
You were already gone.
I was already gone. And I'm pretty sure if I'd stayed there, one of two things would have happened.
You would have gotten air conditioning?
We would have either gotten air conditioning, put a ton of we would have done something, because I couldn't bear to watch Pete suffering. But I mean, it's very rare.
It wasn't
what I'm
just
saying.
me, man. I'm telling you, that was the most miserable. I don't know why they didn't move it outside, like just outside. We did church in the park for so long, but now we got to suffer through. What? For why? It never made sense to me.
They went into the park all summer last summer because I met with them and I say, hey, here's what I do. Yeah. And it you're right. I mean, you're sitting under a shade tree and you're good, man. It's AC. God's AC.
Exactly.
So yeah, man. So the second year, and I always tell planners that are in the second year, don't give up. That is the trajectory that most planners give up during the second year. There's various factors for it. Maybe that's when the money ran out. I mean, all the things we've talked about, but I always tell people, hold on. Most church planners give up in the second year. Don't give up in the second year. Keep going. Hang till the third year. I'm going to this old church plant right now. It's a little Nazarene church plant. And, they don't drink beer, so I can't join their leadership. But they're awesome people, and the DNA of the church is super rad. And I'm like, I told the guy, I said, your church is going to grow. They're in the third year right now. And I'm like, dude, and they went through a really tough time in the second year. And I was like, dude, you made it. You've already broken the stereotype. You've surpassed the trajectory. So the last one was friendly fire. And that's kind of connected to what I was talking about. That's why it flowed better if it was number 5. When people that you loved and you traveled with, and more often than not, what it is maybe you're serving with someone and they just for whatever reason something in their life changes and they decide, no, I'm going to move to Boston, or I'm gonna take this job an hour away, or and that's okay. But friendly fire, that's a common thing. Is church planners often feel abandoned because they're like, I'm called to this, and you were coming with me, but you're apparently not called to this because I'm on my own here. All like Paul said, everyone has fled me, all forsook me, which is what Pete was feeling after I left. But the whole idea that I'm here, but friendly fire is when it gets really tough. Like, it's one thing to feel abandoned, it's another thing to feel attacked. And very few people know the sacrifices that you as a church planner are making. We're talking about money. When the church doesn't have enough money to cover something, you church planners know. Often it's you reach into your pocket and you pay for it. Or someone on your leadership team reaches down into their pocket and pays for it. No one ever knows what's happened. People don't know, the calls that you've made, the visits you've made, the their marriage counseling, that you've stayed up all night with a couple trying to hold their marriage together with them. And people don't know that kind of stuff. You're called into crisis, and you've been there with people, and you think, man, the people are saying, we never could have survived this without you. And then, 1 minute they're shouting, Hosanna. And a couple days later, they're shouting, give us Barabbas. And it hurts,
Yeah.
And I don't think it's accidental that Jesus, that part of his narrative is the Judas story, that, Judas, he feels like, this is my close friend. And David writes about that. And Jesus in ministry knew that. And it's hard, but I would say to you guys, go to him in those times, and if at all possible, save the friendship. The ministry is never going to be as important as your friendship. And that's what I have to say about that, as Forrest Gump says. So, hey, I did it. Looking at the clock. I got 1 minute to spare, baby. So to sum up.
So let me ask you this. What would make life a little bit easier for pastors?
Oh, well, let's say lack of funds is not a problem. You have the funds, but with that Bible balance and the lack of training experience on how to manage it, and you're in your second year, and after all, you're losing your volunteers, and you're busy putting out all that friendly fire, what you could use is simplifiedchurch.com.
What?
They'll help you deal with all, that's right, Pete, simplifiedchurch.com. They'll help you deal with all your bookkeeping needs, your IRS compliance, and anything else you need.
No,
if you need a robot assistant, they'll mail you one.
That was simplifiedchurch.net?
Simplifiedchurch.org? No. Simplifiedchurch.com.
.com. Gotcha.
.com.
Awesome.
All right. Well, hey, guys, thanks for listening today. We appreciate you coming on this journey with us. And I got to go.
So you can do our tagline, or
I will.
doing that anymore?
I will. No, I do it. I'll do it. I forgot. I lost myself. All right. Come here. Repeat after me. If you want to reach... Nope, she's not going to do it.
If you want to reach...
If you want to reach the ones that nobody's reaching, you need to go where nobody's going, and then repeat after me. Do what nobody's doing.
Do what nobody's doing.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Church Planter Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Peyton Jones. We'd love to hear your comments on this episode of the Church Planter Podcast. Visit us online and let us know what you thought at churchplanterpodcast.com. If you subscribe to us via iTunes and have enjoyed the podcast, leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive in iTunes, the more iTunes will promote us to other church planners who would benefit from this show. This podcast is brought to you by the Church Planter Magazine, which is available in the iTunes newsstand or online via churchplantermagazine.com.